The story of the cave beetle with a controversial scientific name, Anophthalmus hitleri. Beetles are a group of insects that are very easy to recognize. Their front wings, called elytra, are hardened and form a kind of armor that protects the rest of the body. Within this group there is a small and curious beetle that lives in the caves of eastern Slovenia called Anophthalmus hitleri. It is not only interesting because of its underground way of life, but also because of the peculiar history surrounding its discovery and its name. Below, we will get to know this cave beetle and the reason why its scientific name has generated so much controversy. Beetles, the most diverse order of animals. There are close to 1,800,000 species described on the planet, and it is known that many more are still waiting to be discovered. This situation is repeated in practically all major groups of organisms, including plants and animals, among other taxa. Within this vast panorama of biodiversity, Coleopterans, commonly known as beetles, constitute the order with the greatest number of species in the animal kingdom, exceeding 360,000 described species. Beetles are easily recognized by their elytra, structures that provide them with an additional advantage against predators and adverse environmental conditions. These insects inhabit practically all terrestrial and freshwater ecosystems, except for the oceans. There are species of large size, so to speak, as well as others that are tiny. There are colorful ones and others with discrete colors, diurnal and nocturnal species, herbivores, predators, scavengers, and parasites. Some beetles live under tree bark, others in the soil, others in water. And some, as we will see below, inhabit a completely different world, that of caves. From the immense diversity of beetles to the most unexpected case. Within this ocean of diversity represented by beetles, there are small and specialized species that go completely unnoticed by humans. An example is species that live in absolute darkness, inside caves, far from the surface and from any contact with us. However, one species ended up being permanently linked, through its scientific name, to one of the most controversial figures of the 20th century. A cave beetle blind, only a few millimeters long, which never had any relationship whatsoever with politics, ideology, or human history, but which became trapped by a decision made in 1937. Its name is Anophthalmus hitleri. A scientific name with unexpected consequences. The scientific name makes it possible to identify each species in a unique and universal way, avoiding confusion derived from common names, which vary among languages and geographic regions. Through binomial nomenclature, a reference shared by the scientific community is established. The name of the genus usually provides information about evolutionary affinities and, on occasion, about general traits of the group, while the specific epithet does not necessarily describe biological characteristics of the species, since it frequently corresponds to eponyms, names dedicated to people, toponyms, names derived from geographic locations, or ethnonyms, names associated with peoples or human groups. This is the case of the beetle Anophthalmus hitleri, whose specific epithet honors a person and does not allude to morphological, ecological, or other types of traits. Up to this point, beetles appear as an extraordinarily diverse group, adapted to almost all imaginable environments on the planet. However, not all stories related to beetles have to do solely with their biology, their ecology, or their evolution. Some force us to look beyond insects and to reflect on the relationship between science, language, and society. There is a very widespread belief that names, both common and scientific, are neutral and completely detached from human culture. In addition, it is often thought that scientific names were created solely to classify and organize the planet's biodiversity and to facilitate communication among members of the scientific community. However, the history of Anophthalmus hitleri shows that even in science, words can have real, profound, and in some cases, dangerous consequences. This small cave beetle, completely blind and hidden in the depths of caves in Slovenia, did not become famous for its biology, nor for its ecology, nor for its role in subterranean ecosystems. It became known for a single reason: its specific name, which permanently linked it to one of the figures, for many, darkest in human history and which, over time, turned it into an object of controversy, desire, and threat. Today we are going to go through the complete history of the species, from its subterranean world to the ethical and scientific debate that surrounds it today. Author of the species and original description: Oskar Scheibel, who lived between 1881 and 1953, was an Austrian engineer and amateur entomologist, recognized for his contributions to the study of beetles, especially those of the Trichini group. Although he trained as a railway engineer, his true scientific vocation developed from his work in the Balkans, where he arrived at the beginning of the 20th century to participate in the construction of railways in Bosnia, then part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. During his stay in the region, Scheibel became deeply interested in the local insect fauna and assembled an extensive collection of beetles, with special attention to cave-dwelling and subterranean species. His fieldwork allowed the discovery of numerous species new to science, some of which were described by other specialists and named in his honor. In 1921, due to financial difficulties, he sold a collection of some 15,000 specimens, reflecting the magnitude of his work as a collector and scientific collaborator. In the 1930s, he settled in Zagreb, where, thanks to his commercial activities, he was able to continue financing his passion for insects. Although health problems limited his fieldwork, he continued to support entomological research and to analyze material collected by other researchers. One of the best-known and most controversial episodes of his career was the description, in 1937, of the beetle Anophthalmus hitleri, a cave-dwelling species discovered in Slovenia, at that time belonging to Yugoslavia. Scheibel chose that name as a personal dedication to Adolf Hitler. The species stands out for its extreme adaptation to subterranean life, such as the absence of eyes, a common trait in cave beetles. Beyond its name, this insect does not present characteristics that are especially different from other species of the same group. The species was described in the article A New Anophthalmus from Yugoslavia, published in the German journal Entomological Notebooks in 1937. Here I show you the opening page of the article, available at the link I leave in the video description. In this first section of the work, Scheibel presents the general characteristics of the species, indicating a size between 5 and 5.5 millimeters in length, a reddish-brown coloration, and a covering of very short, almost invisible hairs over the body. He describes differences in shininess between males and females, the elongated head with well-marked grooves, the long and slender antennae, and the simple pronotum, not heart-shaped, narrowing straight toward the rear and with deep indentations at the base. Scheibel showed 4 figures in the original description, which I present here. The first 2 correspond to Anophthalmus hitleri, while the third and fourth belong to 2 other beetle species that had already been described previously. The specimens of Anophthalmus hitleri used in the original description were not collected by a single person, but came from different entomologists and collectors, who captured the beetles in various caves of the region and later provided them to Scheibel for study and scientific description. This appears on the last page of the article, as I show you here. From a taxonomic point of view, Anophthalmus hitleri belongs to the phylum Arthropoda, class Insecta, order Coleoptera, family Carabidae, subfamily Trichini, and genus Anophthalmus. The subterranean world where Anophthalmus hitleri lives. This beetle lives exclusively in caves within the current territory of Slovenia, located northeast of Italy. The rocks are composed of limestone which, over millions of years, was dissolved by water, giving rise to extensive networks of subterranean caves. It inhabits several caves in the area near the city of Celje, in the Styria region. In these subterranean environments, these beetles play a prominent ecological role, acting as predators of other small cave-dwelling insects. Species that inhabit exclusively habitats of this type are known as troglobians, organisms so specialized that they cannot survive outside caves. Anophthalmus hitleri is a clear example of extreme adaptation to these environments. It lacks eyes, shows a dull coloration that blends with the substrate, and has elongated antennae that allow it to orient itself through touch and the detection of vibrations. Each of these traits is the result of a long evolutionary history in complete darkness, long before any human presence. A small and inconspicuous species. From a strictly biological point of view, Anophthalmus hitleri is not a particularly striking species. Its body is small, without spectacular structures or traits that make it stand out at first glance. It is not venomous, does not emit sounds, has no known complex behaviors, and does not play a visible role for humans. Even within the world of entomology, its main interest lies in its adaptation to cave life and in certain anatomical details used to differentiate closely related species, such as the shape of the male reproductive apparatus. For decades, this species was known only to a small group of specialists. It did not appear much in popular science books or documentaries, nor did it attract interest outside the academic sphere. It was, essentially, just another beetle within a genus with numerous similar species. Everything changed because of a human decision made at a very specific historical moment. Dedication to Adolf Hitler. We have already seen that, in 1937, the entomologist Oskar Scheibel formally described the species. At that time, Europe was going through a period of deep political tensions, marked by the rise of the Nazi regime in Germany and by a climate of growing nationalism on the continent. Scheibel decided to name the species Anophthalmus hitleri, dedicating it to Adolf Hitler, who at that time was Chancellor of Germany. In the original description, the author wrote, "Dedicated to the Chancellor of the Reich, Mr. Adolf Hitler, as an expression of my admiration." This sentence, which appears highlighted in the red rectangle, is the last one Scheibel wrote in the original article. At that time, Scheibel never imagined what would happen years later. Eponyms, names dedicated to people, are a common practice in taxonomy. However, in recent years various sectors of society and some members of the scientific community have proposed changing names considered offensive or morally inappropriate, assigned to species of plants and animals dedicated to controversial historical figures, such as enslavers, dictators, racists, or genocidal figures, among other cases. We will return to this topic later. The literal meaning of the name and the possibility of irony. The name Anophthalmus hitleri is a mixed construction of Greek and Latin origin. Anophthalmus literally means without eyes, while hitleri is the Latin genitive indicating possession, that is, of Hitler. Taken literally, the name can be translated as Hitler's eyeless one, or Hitler's blind one. For many, Anophthalmus hitleri, because of its specific epithet hitleri, is an inappropriate or offensive name that should be changed. For others, it is simply the name of a species, like thousands of other names. It should also be noted that the surname Hitler did not completely disappear after the Second World War, and although many of its bearers voluntarily changed it, there are still many people who carry it as a surname, generally with no relationship whatsoever to Adolf Hitler, since it is a surname that existed before him. In fact, just to give 3 examples, in Peru 2349 people bear the name Hitler, in Indonesia 946, and in England 5, according to the news agency Infobay. On the other hand, if one considers the meaning of the genus and the species together, the expression without eyes and of Hitler could be interpreted, from any point of view, as a cryptic or even potentially offensive formulation toward Hitler himself. However, there is no evidence that Scheibel intended an ironic or ambiguous meaning when choosing this name, at least as far as I am aware, but it remains a possibility. In addition, we do not know whether Scheibel was a convinced Nazi sympathizer, an opportunist, or simply someone who adapted to the social and professional context of his time. Any further assertion in this regard inevitably remains in the realm of historical conjecture. From scientific anonymity to the black market. For decades, the name of the species had no visible consequences. Anophthalmus hitleri remained a species virtually unknown outside the academic sphere. Over time, however, it began to appear in newspaper articles, lists of controversial scientific names, and popular science publications. That visibility attracted an audience completely unrelated to science, such as collectors of objects related to Nazism. For them, the beetle was not a living organism or an object of study, but a symbol and a commodity from which to obtain economic profit. As a consequence, an illegal market emerged. Specimens were stolen from museums, clandestinely collected from their natural habitat, and sold at prices that easily exceeded 1,000 euros per individual. The interest was not in biology, but solely in the specimens themselves and their sale. Let us see what the website 24 Horas says about this. In 2006, The Independent reported that extremists were heading to the Slovenian caves where Hitler's beetle is found to capture specimens, and that well-preserved individuals were being sold for the equivalent of about $1,400 each. Even the Bavarian State Collection of Zoology has suffered thefts of specimens of Anophthalmus hitleri, and it is unknown whether the thieves were neo-Nazis or intermediaries seeking profit in the Nazi memorabilia market, according to the outlet. "It is an innocent insect," wrote a Canadian anthropologist last year in The Economist. "Why not put an end to this illegal trade by changing its name?" Conservation, local measures, and real limits. In response to this situation, various protection measures were implemented in Slovenia. Some caves were closed to the public, others were fitted with gates, and access was strictly regulated to prevent the illegal extraction of fauna. However, these measures have obvious limits. Caves are difficult to monitor, many are located in remote areas, and cave fauna is extremely vulnerable. In addition, numerous subterranean species without controversial names face similar threats, which raises an uncomfortable question. Is the name really the main problem, or does it simply make visible a broader threat to these fragile ecosystems? The scientific debate on changing the name. In recent years, several researchers have proposed changing the name of the species to a neutral one. They argue that this could reduce collectors' interest and eliminate the association with a historical figure responsible for mass crimes. Other scientists strongly oppose this idea. They point out that allowing changes for ethical, political, or historical reasons would put the stability of all biological nomenclature at risk. Let us see what 24 Horas says about this. Some researchers argued for years that species names such as Anophthalmus hitleri, and others that pay tribute to genocidal figures, racists and colonizers, are offensive and should be modified. Some scientific societies took steps in this direction. However, according to science, the International Commission on Zoological Nomenclature, which regulates the scientific names of animals, announced in January its decision not to change names that many researchers consider offensive. According to the Commission's commissioner, Luis Siriaco, a biologist at the University of Porto, changing these names could generate great confusion, which has sparked a vigorous debate within the scientific community. In fact, Desalegn Chulla, from the University of Oslo, Norway, together with his collaborators, proposed renaming Anophthalmus hitleri as Anophthalmus Z, with the aim of eliminating the reference to Hitler without modifying other taxonomic aspects. What do you think of this proposal? And from this same work, I ask, what are today's moral values? A beetle that did not choose its name. Anophthalmus hitleri represents no ideology. It has no relationship whatsoever with human history or politics. It is simply a small insect that evolved in darkness over millions of years, completely oblivious to the conflicts of the outside world. However, a decision made in 1937 turned it into a symbol of a modern debate about science, ethics, and responsibility. Its story shows that even a name can alter the fate of a species. Should science adapt to the moral values of the present, or preserve the stability of its historical rules? But this question opens an even more uncomfortable one. What are those current values, really? The present is not morally uniform, nor necessarily better than the past. Even today there are genocides, invasions of countries, and systematic violations of human rights. Societies change, but violence and abuse of power have not disappeared. Can a scientific name, by itself, become a real threat to the conservation of a species? And if name changes were authorized for moral reasons, who would have the authority to decide them? According to what criteria, and from which ethical position, would that boundary be drawn? Because this small beetle, completely alien to human history, reminds us that even in science, words matter. But also that judging the past from a morally unstable present can be more complex than it seems. What do you think about changing scientific names? Leave your opinion in the comments and share this video with those who love biodiversity. This will help the channel grow and reach more curious minds around the natural world. Subscribe and follow the Antropoceno channel for more simple and entertaining science. Also, don't miss the other science and taxonomy videos available on the channel.